Hey everybody, so I'm going to go through our course syllabus or course description with you all, and hopefully it makes sense. And afterwards you'll fill out a Google form. So if you have any questions or anything that you're not sure about, you can put that in the Google form and we can go over it in class. So overall, our course goals for our Challenge Math 6 class this year, we want to exceed grade level expectations. So being in Challenge, we're not just trying to meet those expectations, we're trying to go above and beyond and exceed those. So that's going to be our kind of main focus this year. You can see in bold the different things we're going to be learning, and then on the side there, the non-bolded items go in a little bit more detail. Moving on to the major assignments and activities. So every chapter, there's going to be some specific things that I'll ask you to do. There'll be an assessment, which is like a test at the end of each chapter. Because we are kind of condensed down into less days, so I don't have you all year long, things are going to feel like they're moving a little quicker, and it's because they are. We're going to be kind of busting through the curriculum, and tests are going to come up probably quicker than you think they should. So we'll have a test for each chapter. We will also have videos and activities that go along with those videos that'll be graded. And then you'll have practice assignments that will be graded as well. I also ask that you take notes for each topic that we learn, so those notes will be graded too. Down to text and materials. Our curriculum, or where we get all of our math stuff from, is called Big Ideas Math, and there's different colors versus grade levels. So we are in the green textbook. It says that textbooks can be checked out anytime the school year in the library. So if you would like to have a handheld textbook, a paper copy, sometimes parents really like that as well. You can check those out through our Northlake Library. We'll have a handheld one for you, but there's also an online textbook in your materials that I'll show you through that Big Ideas app. So if you can always access it online. You also need to have some kind of composition notebook, something that you can take notes in. So I recommend that you have grid in the background of it instead of lines. However, if you don't have one that's got grid in it, it's not going to be the end of the world. I just need you to have some kind of notebook. It could even be something like this that's more of a spiral. That's fine, but I will be asking you to take notes on your work. And then, of course, your Chromebook. Now that we're doing some distance learning, you're going to need that Chromebook for everything. We're going to be Google Meeting, we're going to be using Google Classroom, and then, of course, our math stuff through Big Ideas Math. Grading is going to look similar to a regular school year. So you will be getting an A, B, C, D, or an F, depending on how you're doing in the class. The percentages on how we grade here at Northlake in math classes, you'll see that half of your grade, 50% of your grade, comes from your chapter tests or your assessments or your big projects that we might do. And then the other half of your grade, the other 50%, comes from your daily work and your practice and your notes and that sort of thing. So both of those are equally as important as we move into our distance learning plan. You can always check your grades on Skyward as well. You can see the breakdown here of the percentages and what grade matches each of those percentages. And so here's how we may start a typical day in our Challenge Math 6 classroom online when we're remote learning. You would log into Google Meet. All of our classes are going to start live or synchronous. So you would log in, we would check in, and that's where you'll get any instructions that you would need for that day, for that class period. So we always Google Meet first, and the link is always going to be in our Google Classroom. You'll see the daily agenda. We'll talk about what we're going to be focusing on for that day when you enter in there. I'll always have some kind of entry task. Sometimes it'll be math related and sometimes it won't. Sometimes it'll just be like an activity, a community building, greeting, that sort of thing. And then moving on down. As a class, we may go over that warm up together, or we might talk about something that you were supposed to do the previous night. For example, watch a video and do an activity along with that video. There'll also be something that we do to exit the class at the end. So it's important that you don't just leave our Google Meet without checking in with me. So if you have something to do or a commitment, sorry, my phone is ringing. If you have some kind of commitment that you have, you can just check in with me and say, hey, Mrs. T or Miss Trivet, I've got to go off and do this for my parents or do this for my siblings. Just make sure you talk with me about it before you just leave the meeting. We may have an exit task that'll have you turn in on your way out as well. Okay, so students will be given about an hour to work on the assignment that I'm giving you. So we're wanting to try and leave the live session where you're actually interacting with me and your classmates relatively short. And then the other about hour of class is there for you to work on your assignments that I'm giving you. And that way I'm still there if needed. So you would check in with me as needed for help, like you would do in a typical classroom. However, we're not all focused on that Google Meet. You kind of just use it as a way to ask for help. And then your homework is going to look a little different than a typical homework. Instead of your homework being the practice problems after you learn something, your homework now is going to be watching an instructional video and taking notes and going through that video to actually learn the new concept. So your homework will be learning something new and taking notes on a video I've recorded for you. And then when you get to that live session with me the next day, and if you've done your homework and you've learned that new thing, we should be able to practice together in our live session. Our next section here is completing and turning in work. So all your assignments and your practice work are due the next day unless I tell you otherwise. As a default, if I'm putting something in the grade book, I always put a 0 in if it's not turned in. So a 0 may not necessarily mean you earned 0 points. It might just mean you haven't turned it in yet. So as soon as you turn something in, that 0 will be changed to your actual grade. So just know that a 0 doesn't necessarily mean you earned an F on that assignment. It'll change when you get it turned in. I usually update Skyward daily, but the requirement for our teachers is once every 2 weeks. But you'll see that I update that quite a bit, and daily or every other day is about what I do on Skyward. Everybody cannot take the end of their chapter tests. So if we get through all of chapter 1 and you still have a couple of assignments missing in chapter 1, I don't actually allow you to take your chapter test until all your work is completed. So my kind of idea on that is we really shouldn't be ready for the test unless we've done the practice for that test. So we are going to have to turn in all the assignments anyway, so you may as well get them done on time if you can. So that's that next bullet. And then in Big Ideas, you guys will be able to have a little button that says check answer. So you can click that after you submit an answer to see if it's incorrect or correct. And I give you a couple of different check answer buttons for each question. It's not unlimited, but 2 to 3 per question. And then you just work it out again and put in a new answer if you were wrong the first time. If you're still wrong after using that check answer button a couple of times, it's important to email me or ask me for help to figure out what you're doing incorrectly there. My late work policy, I do accept late work all the way up until we take our chapter test. Remember, you have to submit all your assignments before you can take your test anyway. If I'm putting something in the grade book, again, it's going to be 0 if it's not turned in. And then as soon as you turn it in, if it happens to be late, that 0 will go away and it'll be what your score is. So I don't take points off for it being late. If you are absent, it's very important that you connect with me and email me or send me a comment through Google Classroom and let me know that you are connecting with me, checking in and seeing what you missed during a live session. It's really important because we are taking attendance like normal, just like we were in a classroom. So you want to make sure to connect with me via email if you can't make a live session. If it's going to be a repetitive thing, like because of your family schedule, you won't be able to make any of the live sessions that we have during my class period for math, then you and your family and I are going to have to come up with a plan of how we're going to make sure you're getting all of your stuff done, when that time is going to be, so that I don't mark you absent every single day. There's ways that you can be marked present without going to those live sessions. So we'll have to make a different plan if you can't make our live sessions together. When you're asking for help, there's tons of times to get that help opportunity. They're embedded in our distance learning schedule. So of course, when we're actually live meeting on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, on those 4 days, you'll have an hour of time after our live portion to where you would just work on your assignment and then pop in and ask me questions and then turn your camera off when you don't need help. Kind of go back and forth like that. So you really have an hour of embedded help time every single Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. Along with that, you can have a one-on-one or maybe a small group help as well during the hours of 9 o'clock to 9:30 or 3 o'clock to 3:30. Those different 30-minute sessions are by appointment. So if you wanted a one-on-one help time, you would just email me and ask me for that. And then we would go ahead and set that up on a day that works for you and I. And it would just be you and I working together via Google Meet. And then, of course, all day Wednesday, that's your asynchronous day. So that's where you would be working independently on your work. I will be available during appointments. So if you wanted to work together on a Wednesday, since you don't have scheduled classes that day, we could come up with a time that works for both of us that day as well if you needed that one-on-one help. Email me with questions as well. So you don't have to have a Google Meet. You can also just shoot me an email with a small question you have. And then you are allowed to redo your assignments and your chapter tests. There will be due dates posted for those, and I'll let you know about those. But there is no extra credit given for the class. So you really have to utilize the help that I offer, as well as the kind of being proactive about your grade instead of reactive. We want to make sure that we're studying, we're prepared, and we're doing everything we can beforehand so that we don't have to ask for that extra credit that is not unfortunately offered for this class. Then we have my contact information here, my phone number for the school, as well as my cell number and my email address. Email is the quickest way of getting a hold of me. I usually respond within 2 days, usually 1 day, if you shoot me an email. And this year, of course, it's going to be even quicker since we have a lot of online learning to do. And then just a few additional comments. Big Ideas is our online textbook. It also has some different videos and examples and help, so you can explore that a little bit. It's not just me that you can use as a resource. And then it just says at the bottom here, as we prepare to kind of do this together, I want us to all be flexible about that each of our families and our lives, we're going through different stuff at this point. So as long as you communicate with me, and I'll of course communicate with you about stuff that I have going on, we'll be able to get through this kind of strange situation together. The last thing here it talks about is advanced course expectations. So you all are taking a challenge math class, and that is actually a choice. The regular math class for just Math 6 is the math class that most sixth graders would take. So since you have elected to take this challenge class, things are going to be a little bit more rigorous. And so we need to make sure that we're maintaining some of these things that you see on this list. And unfortunately, if we can't maintain some of these things, we may have to think about a class change. And I will probably have some conversations with any of you that may feel a class change being necessary more at the beginning of the year rather than as we get into the class. So making sure you do all your daily work, making sure you take quality notes on all your lessons, reviewing and studying to be prepared for your lessons and your tests, agreeing to follow all the school and class rules and online learning, of course, rules, making sure we're showing our respect to everyone around us. The big highlighted ones here say, I understand that I must maintain a 70% or higher throughout the year to stay in Challenge Math 6. So in this class, to stay in, you have to get a C-, which is a 70% or better. If we go below that, that usually tells me that the challenge class may not be the best fit for us. Now, if you go below that just for a quick minute because you had a bad assignment, it's not like you go below once and you're out. We just have a conversation about what's going on. We make a plan to fix it. And if we aren't able to fix it in a timely manner, then we can talk about a class change. The next one saying, I understand that to be in the next challenge class, which would be pre-algebra next year, we actually have to get an 80% or higher. So we have to get a B- or higher in this class to be able to be considered for that pre-algebra class next year. They don't have a challenge 7, so instead we call it pre-algebra. So that's the next class if you do really well here. And then the next one says, I know I will need to work harder than ever, will struggle at times, but know that I can do great and will be successful. That's definitely something you need to have that esteem in math to make sure you know you can do this. And then I may need to be moved to a Math 6 class if I don't follow through with some of these statements. So reading through all these guidelines, hopefully that gives you an idea of some things that you're going to be graded on and what to look for in my class. The next thing you'll do is fill out a little Google form for me to let me know if you have any questions. Thanks.